So welcome everybody. We're so glad you're all here for this first Better Together class. This is going to be a 6-class series on relationship enrichment and how to make your relationships better. We're so grateful that everybody is interested, and I just kept thinking we've all been, most of us, stuck at home with just each other for this last year, and stepping on each other's toes and trying to figure out how to navigate being together 24/7. And I felt like it was probably a good time to make this happen. So this is all 6 classes are going to be taught by Kenneth Jepson, who is a local therapist here in American Fork, who is awesome. If you have ever come to any of the library's AF Aware classes, our mental health awareness classes, he teaches those as well. Highly recommend those. The next AF Aware class that is happening is, I thought I would remember the date when I looked at it a minute ago and then I forgot. February 11th will be the next one, and it is about making connections and friends as adults, and it's for teenagers and adults, that class is. Let's see, just want to make sure everybody has been admitted who is here. And Kenneth, do you have anything else that you want to say before we get started? Any introductions, anything else you want me to talk about? Okay, so we're so glad you're all here. I'm here with my husband, who decided he has to be off camera while I'm doing introductions. But I think this is going to be a really great class. Kenneth and I have talked a lot about what to address, and I know he's done a whole lot of work. Oh, one other thing that I did want to mention is that in the Eventbrite event, there is a link to a Google form that if you have a specific question about relationships, marriages, really any mental health thing, but specifically about relationships and marriages, that you would like to have addressed in one of these next 6 classes. Uh-oh, got somebody not muted and getting a little bit of echo, hang on. That you would like to have addressed in one of the next 6 classes, then if you want to just anonymously fill out that Google form, you can do that, and Kenneth can address it in a future one of these classes. If you have a question that you don't feel comfortable asking out loud, or you'd rather just send to him, then you can do that. There's a link to it in the Eventbrite page on the library's Eventbrite. So I'm really excited to hear what Kenneth has to say, and so I'm going to mute myself and turn the time over to Kenneth and let him get started. Thank you, Kenneth.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, welcome everyone. I'm glad you're here tonight. Congratulations being able to stomach one more Zoom meeting after everything that happened with last year. I know it can be a little annoying to sit in front of the screen for everything, but you made a good decision in being here tonight. You know, I became a therapist back in 2000. Well, I started school back in 2013. And part of the reason that led me there is I watched my family and I watched my friends around me. And I found that there's a lot of people that didn't seem to know how to have a great relationship, and they were struggling. And I also saw how their relationships were influenced by the people that came before them. My dad kind of shocked me when I was a teenager, and he was telling me more about our Gibson side's family history and how there was some kind of grudge that started up years ago. And he never got to see cousins from this one side of the family because of this problem. And the impact that's had in severing people lasted multiple generations just because of one event that people really didn't know how to handle. So I saw suffering. I saw people unable to connect with each other, and I saw how it impacted future generations, and I wanted to be able to do something about it. It was painful to watch my best friend and have his marriage dissolve in front of me. And I used to hang out with them every week, and I'd go over there and I'd sometimes have fights in front of me, and I just sat there feeling helpless, like something's going wrong and I don't know what to say. And I know it's easy to feel confused when you're in that moment because Sometimes you said everything you know how to say and things aren't better. And I didn't want anyone else to have to go through that. I wanted to know how to help people so that they could then help everyone else around them. And that's why I chose this career, because I'm not only in the business of saving marriages, I'm not only in the business of helping individuals, but I'm looking at your grandkids and your great grandkids and knowing the impact that you can have on them as you choose to work on your own relationships and grow yourselves. So I appreciate you being here for that. I appreciate you being here for the impact you're going to have on other people. The skills that we're going to be talking about tonight are foundational. These are the same skills that I've been using in my marriage. We're coming up on our 6th anniversary. And we were talking, my wife Heidi and I, we were talking a while back. And she said, you know what? If you didn't have the training as a therapist, we would be divorced right now. And it's true. I know that knowing what I know about myself and my weaknesses, had I not known the path to walk forward, we would have gotten into fights and I would have withdrawn and she would have withdrawn and we would have been just kind of living parallel lives, going down the same track, but not really feeling connected. It's hard to do that in the long term. Marriages like that can last for years, but they're miserable. And it's hard to keep them going. And so the skills that I know that I'm using in my marriage, the same ones that I'm going to teach you, these are the same skills that I teach my clients. And I'm excited to be able to do this on a larger scale. This has been a dream of mine for years now. I knew that I wanted to be a therapist, but I was unclear on what my future would look like when I was done and what I would do with that. And it wasn't very long after I graduated that I went to a seminar. And I saw this guy on stage talking to hundreds of people and making a real difference in their lives and making a difference in my life. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. I want to help people one-on-one, one-on-two, and then I want to be able to impact a lot of people all at once. And so I'm really appreciative of Wendy. Without her setting this up, it would not be doing what it's doing right now, and it wouldn't have the audience that it has. I appreciate the work that she's put in. And if you could just unmute yourself real quick and give her a round of applause, I would appreciate that.
Woohoo!
Wendy knows what's going on.
Woo!
Got her finger on the pulse. I'm excited that you're here because I know that by helping you, I'm not just helping you, I'm helping all the people around you. I'm just one guy doing classes, but when you go home and connect with people, you're at home. When you connect with other people and you're going to be able to share with them what you learn. As you become masters of these skills, you're going to be shining examples for everyone around you. And that's really important because a lot of people honestly don't know how to do this right. Nobody ever teaches us in school. My friend's in a marriage where his wife said the other day, I just don't know what it means to be a wife. I've never seen what a good marriage looks like. I don't know what that is. And so she's just repeating the patterns that she watched her parents go through. Her mom was the boss and her dad was like the kid. And it was her mom's job to boss the kids around and her husband. That's what she tries now. And it doesn't work so great. And so just you being here and working on these skills in your marriage, you're going to be able to influence people in ways that you don't even know. Ways that in ways where they're watching you and you don't even know they're watching you. I'm excited to be able to share this so that I can train you guys as a core group of people with a mission. You're like the vanguard. You go out first, you learn this stuff, and you start helping to change people around you. And when I was a kid, there were a lot of different careers that you could think about being when you grow up, like teacher, therapist, doctor. But there's a whole new career path now called influencers, a pretty new thing. And it basically consists of being popular and then using that fame to sell people stuff. But I want to train some real influencers who know how to help people in the things that matter the most and not just what kind of hair products to buy. There are some people that come into therapy to see me, and everyone's at a different level. Everyone's at a different place in their life. Some people are ready to hit really hard. I've had some where they just do 4 or 5 sessions, like, okay, cool, we got this. Other people, a little bit more long-term, they have a little bit more work that they need to do. and I help them out with that. Some people come in and they're full of doubt. They're not even sure that things can change. And they can be struggling with a lot of despair, that they're kind of stuck. But whatever the stage, just start where people are at and try to help them with where they are. And so wherever you are tonight, there's something that you can learn. Maybe some of this is review, maybe some of this is new. I know a lot of this you're going to hear and go, oh, duh. But we already know what to do in so many cases, don't we? Like, we all know how to eat healthy. It's just a matter of doing it, right? Some of this is going to seem pretty self-evident, but what matters is not that you know it. It matters that you do it, that you put it into action. So the fact that you're here, it bodes pretty good, because you're taking responsibility for your life, for your relationships. You're actively seeking knowledge and change, and I applaud you for that. And even if your spouse drug you here, you're welcome to be here. We're glad that you're here. I've been in many classes where I've been sitting in the back with my arms folded, like, I dare you to teach me something. I know what that's like. So wherever you're at, you're welcome here. I found that change is kind of like, it's an uphill climb in a way, but I found that the more we change, the faster we change. It's like we're going downhill, we gain momentum. And when you start to hope that things can be different, you start to get that momentum because you start seeking knowledge, you start doing things differently. And it's slow at first, but the more you change, the faster it grows. So I'm excited for the journey that you're on right now, for where you're at and how this is going to help you tonight. And tonight, there's a lot of things I want to teach you, but I'm not here to just dump knowledge on you. I want to help you change your life right now, because I know that actions lead to results. I want to read you something that a client sent me a couple months ago. They've recently moved, and they just kind of wanted to check in and tell me how they were doing. And she said, we're in a really good place now. We use the skills you taught us every day. She capitalized every day, and are so grateful for everything we learned from you. I really don't think we would still be married if it weren't for therapy. We love therapy, with 3 exclamation points. Somebody else said, I shared how I felt with my husband in the way you suggested, and the response from him was so much better than I expected. If I had held it in all day and had been distant tonight, and then it came out in a fight, he would have defended his criticism, basing it on history. This was a new pattern for me, and it worked. Thank you for teaching me. Now, the thing that this has, these 2 comments have in common, is that people learn something new and put it into practice. They learned how to do a new pattern. And when you learn the new pattern and you do it, you get the results. Doing the right action will bring the right result. And I know that it can be hard to believe, because sometimes you've been doing the same dance with each other for so long that it seems like nothing's going to change. And, you know, they say it's insanity to repeat the same pattern because you keep getting the same results. And I get that. When we go through repeated failures, it makes us feel despair. It's kind of like we have a recipe for chocolate cake, and instead of sugar, we've been like substituting salt. And each time we go to the effort to mix the batter and pour it and bake it, we're disappointed. And then that makes us not want cake anymore. And cake is a horrible thing to not enjoy. So it's not about trying the same thing and hoping something different will change. It's about figuring out the pattern that needs to shift so that you can fix the recipe and get the right results. And a lot of times we don't recognize what the problem is because we can't see the back of our own heads. This is why we don't usually give ourselves haircuts unless we have a mirror. We can't see the back of our own head without help. I'm hoping tonight that some of this will cause you to see patterns that are happening that might need to be adjusted enough. Sometimes people are on the right track. They're doing the right things, but they just haven't been doing it long enough. They kind of abandon the formula halfway, thinking that it's like some magical formula where you do it once and it will fix everything. But it's not it's a way of life. It's not something you just do once and then stop. If you want to be happy, it's a way of living. It's kind of like how we struggle with diets, because we want to eat junk food all day. And so we go on a diet and think, I'll just eat I'll just eat this way, and then I'll lose all my weight. I'll eat the vegetables now, and then I can go back to the old way, and that just doesn't work. My client, I called her out. I was like, hey, you're being really mean. And she's like, I tried to be nice, and it didn't work. I was like, you can't stop. Be nice for a little bit and expect that to make a great relationship with your husband, and then stop. We've got to do what works, and then we've got to keep doing it. But when you know you have the formula and you know that you're on the path, it gives you confidence, even if you're still struggling with it. Let me tell you something. I know that you can do this. There's nothing that will hold you back. I know in my own life, there is nothing that is going to strike my marriage down. I have the skills to make it work. My wife and I are committed to making it work. And so we get to go into this with a great sense of confidence, because there's no question marks of like, oh, but what if this comes up? We know exactly how to handle it. So having the knowledge can bring confidence, and I want everybody else to know that too. So tonight, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you some education, and then we're going to work on the action step. And you'll have a chance to practice some of these so that when you log off tonight, you'll be able to put these to work in your life. Because it's not what happens in this class tonight that causes the big changes. It's what you choose to do with it when you're home. And that's true of therapy as well. A good 60% of people's outcome is based on what they do when they're not in therapy. And that includes doing your homework assignments. So I'm giving you a big part of the formula tonight. And now it's just going to be up to you to live that. So we'll go through the steps, we'll practice. And then at the end of the class, we'll have a question and answer period. If you have any of those, hold on to them. And as we go through things tonight, it could be slightly uncomfortable just because, you know, we're talking about how to make a relationship better. And I know not everybody's in an amazing place with their relationship right now. There's a lot of pain that's probably pretty close to the surface. And it's okay if it's there. It's okay if it comes up. I'm not going to push things too hard, but you know, this could stir something up. And if you notice those emotions rising, it's okay to feel them. I would suggest that you just take really deep breaths and accept the fact that you're feeling that right now and let it pass through. So after we have you practice, you're going to have some homework in the action steps. And like I said, that's what's going to make the change. But before we go any further, we do need to go over some ground rules. First of all, number one, I'd like you to commit to yourself that you're going to be present. I'm here to help you get results. And that means I need your attention. And if you're not here for results, you may want to ask yourself why you're here. I had a pattern for a long time in my life where I just sought knowledge for the sake of knowledge. And I didn't really apply it. And I wasted years hearing things, but not really absorbing, not using them. So if you're here tonight, choose to be here 100%. And you're not just going to be following a rule in a class for the library, but you're going to be practicing a fundamental skill that helps you to connect with other people. Because if you can't be fully present, fully focused on a person, you're going to feel it. Thinking about other things, if you're checking your phone every couple of minutes, they're not going to feel that connection. That might be a really important part of your relationship that you might want to consider. All right, rule number 2, you might hear something that sounds familiar. And when you do, you're going to get this itching elbow and you're going to want to jab the person next to you. You got to keep your elbows to yourself. And finally, if I call something out and it does sound familiar, you don't want to use this as ammunition in the future. All right, are these rules acceptable? Can we all agree that we will live by these? All right, I want you to pinky promise the person next to you. Commit, I'm going to follow these rules for the next hour at least. Good. Okay, everyone. Good. All right. So let's get started. The reason that you all came here tonight, you want me to change your spouse, right? Let's be real. Oh, if only it works that easy. But here's the thing that's interesting. Changing your spouse won't so much work. If you choose to change you, that will See, there's a little thing in the therapy biz called reciprocal causality. Let me show you on our whiteboard here. It's an important concept. In the olden days, we had a view of linear causality. A leads to B. Chemical reaction leads to these results. And when we think about our relationships in this way, it completely ignores how we continually influence each other. Because what's really happening is person A does something, and then person B reacts to that, and then that influences person A. And so you can be caught in this never-ending cycle. And where did it begin? I don't know, maybe when you were dating. And we always look at the other person and we're like, well, you did this and you started this. Like, but boy, this has been going way further back than you think. But the empowering part of reciprocal causality is you can do something to change. Even if they send you something you don't like, you don't have to respond in the same way. Did you know that? You are not locked into this. You don't have to be committed to the old pattern. You can do something new. This is kind of like dancing, honestly. If you're waltzing together and one person suddenly decides to do the foxtrot, the dance falls apart. Like, go ahead and try to dance foxtrot while someone else is doing the waltz. It's not going to work. So if I could just take this knowledge in my brain and put it right into yours, that would make my day. If you only knew the power you had to influence your partner, even if they do nothing different, we could stop the class right there. That would absolutely change your life. I'm working with some clients right now, and the husband used to come home, and when he saw that his wife was in a bad mood, he would just like keep his distance because he was afraid of, maybe she's mad at me, I don't want to cause something, I don't want to have a fight. Well, because reciprocal causality is a thing, when he'd come home and she needed some love and support, then he's out of there, she felt abandoned, she felt lonely. And so what did she do? She gets more upset, she starts feeling needy, and then she's mad at him, and so she's demanding things from him, but it's coming out in kind of an aggressive way, and then he wants to withdraw more. And we worked on this, and I was like, hey, you got to switch this pattern up. When you see her being upset, instead of running, I want you to engage. And it's scary, it really is. But he started to do that. He started to go, uh-oh, she's in pain, I need to help her. And he texted me, he's like, this changed everything. I just started being nice to her. I started helping her when she felt down, and she started to trust me more. So one little shift can make such an incredible difference. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because it is an essential part of the recipe. You have to understand how your actions are helping to create the responses you're getting from your partner. You have to know this. And so I hope you have your notes in front of you. And if you don't, please grab something to write on. Because as we go through this tonight, I'm going to say some things, and it's going to get you thinking. And you may have a thought that just kind of dings like, oh, aha. Those are the ones you really want to write down, because that's coming from your internal guidance system. And I've got a lot to share tonight, but not all of it may apply as equally. And so you're going to be looking for the gems that really stick out to you. But boy, you got to know about reciprocal causality, because if only you change, your relationship will change too. So tonight I want to give you some of the top myths that stop people before they start. Marriage is kind of like a marathon. We got a long ways to go to the finish line. A lot of people are on the starting line with their shoelaces tied together. That makes it really difficult. And so if you notice yourself that one of these beliefs is something you've got, if one of these hit you, I'd like you to write that one down. And then I'd like you to write down the answer that I'm giving you and how to look at that the right way. That's one to really hold on to and let sit in your brain, let ponder and sink in. Because we have to change our psychology first before we change our communication. Our patterns start in our mind, and so we have to start there. When we run into problems in our relationship, we usually react in a couple of ways. But first of all, we have to figure out why. Our brain needs to make sense of things. We are meaning-making creatures. And so when there's a problem in the relationship, your brain's going to go, why is this happening? Let's figure out a reason. And it'll come up with one. And it doesn't have to be a true reason. If it seems plausible, we'll totally go with it. When the problem comes up, we're like, why isn't this like it was when we were dating? Things seemed to work then, you know, and now they're not. And sometimes we say, well, we just fell out of love. And that kind of seems to imply that falling into love is something you don't choose to do. And there's definitely an automatic part to it. Falling out of love, that is because of patterns. Falling out of love is what happens to anyone if they don't keep their foundation strong. So if you've fallen out of love, you can fall back in, or maybe more accurately, work to fall back into that. Sometimes we think, oh, I just married the wrong person. When things are rough, we think, oh, well, it must be because it's the wrong person. And we fail to remember that things sometimes go good. And in those moments, we think, oh, I married the right person. But it clearly has nothing to do with them. It's not the person, it's just the patterns. If your relationship is not where you want it to be, your patterns have changed. And if you'd like it to improve, start looking at those patterns that you were using when you were dating. Dating, I feel like, is this taste of Eden. It's like, this is paradise. The infatuation, they call it limerence, where you're just so in love with this person and it's almost irrational and you can't do anything but think of them and talk of them and you drive everyone crazy because you're always talking about them. That's to give you a taste of what a relationship can be like in the long term. It wears off. It wears off because it's just to give us the idea so we know what kind of a goal we're reaching for. And when you're kicked out of Eden, it's your job to work back, to create your own. You know, you're kicked out into this crappy world, and then you got to make your own new Garden of Eden there. And it's totally possible to get back to that. When we go through repetitive problems, we just think, oh, we just have incompatible issues. Here's another myth. If you don't know this, this might come as a shock. I told a couple this once, and she was like, wait, what? Hang on, I need a minute to digest this, because I said there are two types of problems. There's solvable problems and unsolvable problems, and every couple has them. And she was like, so these don't go away? Like, oh, yeah, sorry, did you know that? Oh, geez, I should have come at that softer. Every couple has them. And there's a pattern to use when you run into an unsolvable problem that helps you to navigate it together. And it doesn't make it go away, it doesn't fix the problem, but it does fix the connection between you. So that's totally a thing. We just need to know the patterns, and then we can solve pretty much everything. You know, I really wish we would kind of change our approach to marriage in Western culture. I kind of wish we could rewrite the wedding vows. Maybe not even use the term spouse anymore. I think it would be so awesome to start calling each other refinement partners. Because man, there is nothing more refining than being in a relationship. It's like the person's rough edges are going to bounce into your rough edges, and it hurts. And it's going to hurt repeatedly. And they've got their weaknesses and you got your weaknesses. And when you're both in a load together, it's miserable. They don't really warn us about that. They say sickness and health, and like there'll be bad times, richer for poor, but they don't say this is going to be so hard and they're going to hurt you constantly. And your job is to absorb the blow, move the emotion through, like let it go, forgive them, and then work on making it better. I think if they were that clear with us, it might scare us off. Maybe that's why they don't say that. And, you know, a lot of people in Utah are in a culture where they believe that marriage is an eternal thing. And man, sometimes I think you have to go in with that kind of mindset because it takes sometimes that level of commitment to go, all right, let's make this work. Because when we run into problems, we want to just stop and give up. It's easier. We want to withdraw. We want to ignore them and hope they go away. But then the pattern continues. So when we get married, whether we know it or not, we're making a commitment to stick this out and fix it. If there's a problem, we fix it. The only thing is, when we don't know how to fix it, we start to give up hope. Thankfully, there are free library presentations to help with that. But I want you to take some comfort in knowing that everything can be fixed if you figure out the pattern. Now, sometimes you're thinking, we can't change, my spouse can't change, we've just been doing it too long. The whole can't teach an old dog new tricks. And that's just not real. Your brain can rewire itself at any age. You can learn new skills. The reason why we often get stuck in these patterns is because we're hurting. We don't feel loved. We don't feel like the other person cares for us. We don't feel like a priority to the other person. But that can change. When you can fix that, the pattern is going to shift almost automatically. Unless your partner has a personality disorder, things can change and get better. And please don't go around diagnosing everybody. It seems like everybody I talk to has done their research on the internet and they think their spouse is a narcissist. I promise you, they're most likely just hurting and they've pulled away. Because we retreat when we get hurt. Early on in the marriage, maybe we show our pain to each other. After the repeated injury goes on and on, that's a burden on our shoulders. That hurts. And so we start kind of move away and try to shut our emotions down. We retreat so that we can protect ourselves, and it can make us look kind of apathetic. We may think, my partner doesn't care about me. They don't show it. But that's just them in a protective mode. If your partner is in apathy, they've been really hurt and they're trying to protect themselves, and it's kind of the best they know how to do. And so I hope that you're going to see your partner with new eyes tonight and realize that hurt people hurt people. And when we heal the hurt in ourselves, it makes it a lot easier to not hurt others, and it makes it a lot easier to heal those other people. Because we are just mostly instinctual creatures, and we don't know how to do anything better until we learn. And we may sometimes think like, oh, my partner, well, they know better. They should know better. We say that a lot. But knowing something in your head, like I said, is very different than putting it into action. Knowing how to eat healthy, knowing how to run a business is different from actually running a business or actually losing weight. These two parts of our brain are totally disconnected. And we think that if we read something in a book, we should automatically be able to make it a behavior. And man, I wish that was the case, but it's just not reality. So I'd like you to consider that your partner is a friend who's in pain. And if they seem like they're selfish, that's just them trying to meet their needs in the best way that they know how. And the reality is we can't be truly selfless and charitable and loving to other people until we've taken care of our basic needs. It's like the airplane with the oxygen masks. We're supposed to put it on ourselves first, take care of our needs. Then we can help other people. Now at this point, some of you might be thinking, great, this is fine. Why aren't we talking about communication? This is the big problem in a relationship. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to handle conflict. Boy, let me tell you, I would love to jump in there with you, but I have made that mistake too many times in the past. There have been times where a couple comes in and they say, we're fighting. I'm like, okay, cool. Here's the pattern. Here's what you do. Here are the skills. Let's practice them. And they have taken those tools and turned them into weapons to bludgeon each other. Like validation is one of those tools. But if you don't have the foundation for validation, you don't know how to use it. And this couple of mine, they'd get into a point where they're in a fight and where they should be connecting and understanding where the other person's coming from. They're instead like, you're supposed to validate me. Kenneth said you're supposed to validate me. They're like, well, you got to validate me first. Oh man, it just made it so much worse. So what I'm teaching you tonight, this is research-based. I'm basing everything you're learning tonight on the research findings of John Gottman. And he has kind of written a book on how to make a relationship work. And we got to start at the foundational level. As we go on through this series, you're going to get the good, juicy stuff. We're definitely going to get there in the next months. But tonight, we have to focus on the foundation. I've tried this in therapy. I try to do communication first when the relationship isn't solid, and it just backfires every time. So if you don't trust me because I have a master's degree, I hope you will trust me because I learned from experience when I was a new therapist. So yeah, we got to deal with the foundations first. All right, so I'd like to kind of describe what each of you have probably experienced on some kind of
Yeah.
level in your relationship. Let me open up the whiteboard again.
Hey, Kenneth, can I
Yeah.
make a comment really fast
Sure.
before you transition? I just
Mhm.
wanted to say maybe some of us feel like our marriages are okay too, as they are, and yet we want to learn how to do better. And all of the things that you're going to be teaching don't necessarily only apply if things are terrible in your marriage, but definitely apply if things are great and you want them to be even better.
You bring up a good point, Wendy. Let me go over some ratios. Wasn't planning on talking about this, but seems like it's a good time. John Gottman found that if you want to boil down all marital therapy into the simplest way, marriages work when you have a ratio of 5 positive experiences to every 1 negative experience. So for every time there's love and concern and compassion, well, that's got to be 5 times greater than the amount of negativity. We all know this. We know it instinctively. Having one bad fight can just kind of devastate us. It hurts and it erases a lot of progress. And we found 5 to 1 is the ratio for a fulfilling relationship. But if you've got 2 to 1, that's a stable relationship. It's not great. You're like, things are fine. We do okay. We don't fight very much. But it feels kind of unfulfilling. And just by increasing your ratio of positive to negative, you're going to make your relationship better. And so, as much as some of this may seem kind of like, oh no, it's really important. If you're not living this, if you don't have your ratio of at least 5 to 1, that's something to work on. When we get into problems with each other, I'm going to draw some expertly rendered human beings here. Look at those proportions. Man, don't you wish you had a body like that? That torso twice as long as the legs. We have 2 people in a relationship, and we basically are connected through our hearts. We have these emotions. Wow, those hearts need some work. That's okay. It's okay. I'm growing. We've got this energetic connection between our hearts. And when we get hurt, we go, oh, that was painful. I'm going to put up a wall. And then our partner is sending us these love beams and they just bounce off, they ricochet, and it cuts off what we feel from them. And they feel it. They feel that it's bouncing back. And pretty soon they go, oh my gosh, this hurts. I'm going to put up my own wall. So now we have these walls between us. And because it's chopping off, blocking the energetic connection, the relationship starts to kind of wither. There's distance between us. And I'm so very excited to teach you all about walls, and we're going to get into them a little bit more in the next one. But taking a wall down immediately is not the best idea, quite honestly, because if you decide to just be verbal all of a sudden, you're still going to get hurt, and it's going to be very tempting to put the wall right back up, and this time make it extra thick. We have to build a little bit of safety and trust with each other before we can start to tear down the wall. So basically what I'd like to do, I don't know, I'm switching analogies on you, but we need to increase like the magnetic pull over here in the relationship. If we can just like increase the pull so you're at least closer, step against the walls, that'll be a lot easier of a transition once we start to take those down. Make sense? So when these walls are up, I know you know what this feels like. You know, you come into the house and you don't greet each other, you don't make eye contact, you don't go check on each other. You're just kind of like a fixture in the room. You don't feel maybe super close to each other. It can be like just, oh, they're there, that's fine. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you had a fight and there's that crusty feeling. You can just feel the energy when you walk in the room. Like something's not right, and you may have been feeling this for a while. And when we feel this for a while, and our walls have been up for that long, it just kind of becomes our new normal. And we have to try to figure out a way to survive, because it is a painful thing. Sometimes we try to convince ourselves that we don't need the connection. And a lot of times we just try to distract ourselves. We get really busy with work. or we get really busy with a hobby, anything to distract ourselves, because there's just something missing, and sometimes it's even hard to put our finger on it. And we look at other people's marriages and we think, oh, they look about the same, and we just end up talking to our partner about childcare or finances, just the boring day-to-day of life. We sit in the same room, but we're on our phones, not really talking to each other, and we're talking about deeper things. And it can feel kind of anxious sometimes, and some people react to that by taking more distance to take care of themselves, and some people react to that by kind of chasing the other one down and usually demanding that we spend more time together. But it comes with a little bit of aggression, and then the other person pulls away further. Does it sound like a familiar pattern to anybody? Like I said, before we tear this wall right down, we need to focus on bringing you guys closer together and build some closeness. And that's the big focus of tonight. Because friendship is the foundation of every good marriage. And what is it that makes us be friends with people in life? Usually we have something in common, but they're also nice. They're just fun to be around. We like the way we feel when we're with them. And when they stop being nice, we don't want to be around them anymore. If they start being a jerk, friendship starts to deteriorate. I was in high school and I had two friends and we hung out together, and you know how three's a crowd. And my one friend, we just started picking on him for some reason. I don't know, it's fun. He'd react. He was asleep in class one day and I laid on the floor and I slid under his chair, just pushed his chair up, and he was mad, and I could feel like, oh, I damaged the relationship there a little bit. Like, he did not like that at all, and he stopped liking me so much. So I had to kind of repair that and fix that. I started to be nice again so that our friendship started getting better. And when people start acting like jerks, usually it's because they're not feeling so great about themselves. Like I said, hurt people hurt people. They feel unsafe. So friends basically stop being friendly when they're in that state. And then somebody acts that way, we usually get mean back to them, or we get cold. So that's one way a friendship can deteriorate, when we're just not nice enough. And the other way is we need to have some trust. We're friends with people because we can trust them. And if that friend lashes out a lot, we don't trust them so much, and we kind of want to keep our distance. We put the wall up, right? Sometimes we can get really ugly with each other. We can be so hurt that we take something they say, we take something vulnerable they've shared, and we turn it into a weapon, and we hit them with it. We go for those low blows because we're trying to defend ourselves. And that can really do some damage to the friendship too. When we're friends with people, we know that we can confide in them. There's another one of the things that stands out. So are these lacking in your relationship right now? Maybe a little bit. And that can hurt, but it's okay, because again, these things can change. What isn't there now can come back. And even if it's maybe not been there super strong in the beginning, you can grow it for the first time. You can become better friends. And it's not as hard as you might think. Just do me a favor. Will you turn to your partner right now? Just look at him real quick and just say, I'd like to be a better friend to you. All right, now, at this point, whether you're wearing pajamas or not, I need you to turn on your video, and no judgment here, no judgment at all. I mean, behind me looks really organized, but that's only because I moved stuff. You can see this half of the room, it's bad. So I'd like you to raise your hands up in the air. You deep breath in, and we are going to collapse over. We're going to fold on ourselves, and we're just going to blow raspberries out, okay? So just ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, that's nice, right? Shake it out. Shake it out. That's good. Okay. We need to get that out of the way before we go any further. Okay, now, there's another thing friends do, and this is so stupid and simple. we really got to practice it. I think sometimes we forget to smile because we've been fighting so much. So I want you to look in the camera here, and I want you to show me like your best smiles. I want you to practice with me. This is silly. This feels really weird. It's okay. And just show me those feelings. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Good job, you guys. I'm liking this. Yeah, make sure to use the eyes, because this isn't just, oh, so awkward, Kenneth's being weird. Why is he like this? Why are we here tonight? No, this we got to go full out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here. And the eyes are crinkly and happy. Oh, you guys are good at this. Very nice. Okay. Good job. I like that. All right, now, I'm going to have to ask you to go a step further. I want you to keep the smile on. I want you to turn and look at each other, but just for like a second, like, oh, a little bit, like, oh, little, not too much. We don't want to overwhelm you. It's like, too much. Okay. Good. Good job here. Good job. All right, now, we're up the game just a little bit. I want you to turn to them, and I want you to just go, hello. With the smiles. Fine. And say, hello. Yeah, well, very, yeah. Okay, good, good. And now, can up it a little bit more. Turn to each other and go, good looking. And you know what? If you want to use the finger guns, you can totally use the finger guns. Hey, good looking. All right, now make sure to give them like a good eyebrow waggle, like, hey, good looking. Give them a smile, give them an eyebrow waggle.
A little bit of a how you doing, right?
Yep. But this is a simple thing. You all know how to smile. You've practiced it. You're good at it. I can clearly see this. I want you to try something. Every time one of you walks in the room, your new job is to make sure to make eye contact and smile at each other. Because when you walk in a room and someone smiles at you, you feel good and you feel safe and comfortable. It's like, oh, they're a friend. This is nice. I like this. Oh, hello, friend. And as dumb and as simple as this is, this will start to change your ratio. We already know from science that if you smile, it will change your brain chemistry. In our culture, we're always talking about chemical deficiencies in our brain. Well, you can change your chemicals in your brain just by smiling. That's kind of impressive. It's not as hard as you may think. So practice the smile. Look at them. I'm working on being a better friend to you, guy. You can do this. This is simple. All right. So that's going to be the new routine. All right. Because one of the things friendship is based on is paying attention to each other. And sometimes we don't do a great job of that because we all have these constant distraction devices with us. So we want to be more than a fixture in the relationship. We want to have this like sense of contact, right? So be looking at each other and just be smiling. And maybe like you're in and out of the room 5 times in an hour. That's okay. Smiling takes almost no energy. Just, okay, good to see you again. Give them the finger guns. That'll work too. Paying attention is super important. Usually we either don't pay enough attention to each other or we're paying negative attention to each other. I've got a friend and I love his guts, but he doesn't understand how he comes across. And every time his wife calls his name, every time his kids go, hey, Dad, he responds just like this. What? And man, like, I just watch those poor kids just like, oh, and they're kind of used to it. And they're trying to fight through it. But, hey, Dad, what? You know, his question says, what do you need? And the tone says, like, I'm not happy to see you. We are not friends. I'm not happy you're here. We got to be aware of that. We got to make sure that the attention we give is positive attention, or else that kind of what could very easily, that's going to be a negative experience. And that could very easily spark a fight. Very different if we go, yes, what can I help you with? Wonderful to see you. People are going to naturally feel safer around us. So more attention, more positive attention. That's pretty simple, right? And we all need this. This is a human need. We need positive attention from family or we start to get grumpy. This applies to children. This applies to adults. We need the positive attention and sometimes we forget that. And when the kids are misbehaving, there's usually an imbalance of attention. We often are catching them doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And so they get the punishment, they get the negative attention. You start catching them doing something good, that's a big difference. That helps them to start feeling better and different. So same with your partner, lots of positive attention. We constantly are also playing a game trying to get it from each other. And we try to play this game to get attention without actually asking for it, because that can feel kind of vulnerable and kind of weird to say, hey, will you pay attention to me? Although I do like to say, regard me. That's how I like to ask for it to my wife. Regard me. But what we usually do is it's all subtle. And, you know, for example, I'll be scrolling through all the hot memes on Reddit, and I'll be like, huh. And what I'm doing when I say, huh, is going, hey, I saw something funny. Can you please look at me so I can share it with you? I'm hoping, you know, we're just hoping like they'll say, hey, what's so funny? Because that's an opportunity to connect with the person, right? This is how friends work. We're attuned to each other. It helps us to be connected when we're paying attention to them. This is called bidding. We are constantly making bids for the other person's attention. And it's subtle. It's body language, it's tone. Sometimes we walk into the room and we walk a little slower, like, you're gonna look at me? Oh, hello. That's all we need. We just kind of need to check in. My cat walks in the office every 3 hours and just kind of goes, oh, you're still here? Good. Checking in. Wanted to make sure we're good. We're okay now. And when your kids are trying to tell you about their favorite YouTuber, that is the same thing. They just want to connect with you. So try to remember that it's not about the YouTuber, it's about the relationship with them, and that makes it a bit easier. You know, connecting is hard in some ways with our lifestyle. Things get busy. And it's just natural if we have nothing else to do, but when we have a lot of stresses on our mind, it falls by the wayside. And so many of the important things end up falling by the wayside. This is just like the glass jar and the sand and the rocks. Do you know about this one? I'm sure you've heard of this. The rocks represent all of the important things in your life: time with family, self-care, exercise, eating well. And the sand represents all the little things that get in the way, all the distractions. And if you put the rocks in the jar first, you have room to make the sand go in. Everything will fit. But if you do the sand first, the rocks just don't fit. Simple analogy, but it's so accurate. Just the other day, Thursday morning, I was tired and I decided, I'll just sleep in. It'll be okay. So I slept in, and when I woke up, I got right on my phone. Big mistake. Oh, don't get on your phone right in the morning. Horrible. It keeps you stuck in bed. So I laid there for an hour, just scrolling through news articles. When I finally got up, I'm like, okay, I gotta wake my brain up. Time for my morning routine. I need to mentally focus. I need to get like spiritually focused in. And I sat down to do that. And my wife Heidi sits down and she goes, hey, don't forget, we're going down to pick up all my pottery from the kiln today. And I was like, oh crap, I don't have time to do my routine. And the routine takes a certain amount of time, and I like to give it that amount of time. And then I had a notification pop up on my phone like, hey, don't forget you've got your colleague group at 9 o'clock. And I was like, it ruined everything. I didn't have time to do anything. And it's all because I let sleeping in get in the way, which can be a little thing. Sometimes it's important to make sacrifice, but the whole day kind of fell apart right from there. And so when it comes to connecting with each other, sometimes, as lame as it is, you kind of have to schedule it. You have to make sure this is something on the calendar, or else taking care of life, taking care of children will just ruin everything. And then you realize you haven't talked to each other for a while. So it has to be deliberate, it has to be part of the plan, and we'll talk about that in a second. But there's something that you can do during those times that can be really helpful, because smiling is nice, but it's helpful when we talk to each other. And when you have these moments of connection, you want to make sure it's extra positive. And so we're going to do a little practice right now. Let me share this with you. These are 72 attributes. 72 things that your partner has some of. And I'd like you to look through this list. I want you to pick out just one right now. One thing that you're grateful for, one thing that you appreciate in your partner. And when you find it, you can't just say like, hey, I appreciate the loyalty, because you're going to actually tell them about this in a second. You want to come up with a story. You want to come up with a reason. If they're cheerful, you may think of the time when they burst in the door and said, I'm so glad to be home. I love you so much. Oh my gosh. Or, I don't know, fun. Like that time on my second date with my wife, she blindfolded me in the grocery store and spun me around in a circle, and I had to point my finger and just walk in a random direction until I bumped into something, and that's what we bought and made for dinner. That was fun. I appreciated that about her. That was a good time. Let's scan through this list, find one thing you appreciate about them and the reason for it. I'll give you a minute.
We're just supposed to be identifying one right now, right? Not
Just
doing anything
fine.
with it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Give you 20 more seconds to pick one. Okay, does everybody have one? Cool. All right. Let's see, how are we going to decide who goes first? Let's see, if your birthday is January to July, you go first. Whoever has the earliest birthday in the year, that's the one who goes first. So you're going to turn to your partner and you're saying, I really appreciate this about you, and here's why. Ready and go. Okay, 10 more seconds. All right, good job. Give each other a high five. Say, man, you are awesome at appreciation. Feels nice, doesn't it? This is a good positive interaction. We can add that to the ratio here. Now your assignment is to make sure you do this at least twice a week. You can do more if you want, but we don't want to be perfectionistic about it. Don't want to overwhelm you. And don't worry, I'm going to give you the link so that you can find the I appreciate items. But twice this week. And I want you to make this inner commitment to yourself. Like, I definitely will do this. And you know what's going to happen? As soon as we hang up here, you're going to forget. So I want you to pull out your phone, your calendar, get your planner, whatever you use, and set a reminder. There's just no excuse for anything anymore because Google or Siri can just say, hey, remember there's that thing you got to do. Make sure that you got a reminder set, and it's going to give you a notification and it'll get your attention. So you may just have to catch them wherever they're at to share this. But like I said, it can be easier if there's a little bit of structure in your life, if connection with your partner is planned out. And date nights are great if you can make that happen. Sometimes life's super busy and you have to schedule some things around it. And sometimes maybe you can only have an hour to talk with each other and you don't even go do anything. But any time you can spend having positive connection is really going to help here. So here's the recommendation. Just to start with this, and it's fairly easy to do. This won't take you but a couple minutes a day. We want to create a ritual around partings and reunions. When somebody leaves in the morning and somebody comes home at night, and maybe you're all digital now with COVID, maybe that's a little bit easier. Maybe that's a little bit harder. But what you're going to do during these partings and reunions is you're going to want to keep touching each other in some way, and smooching is totally fine here. You want to know a little bit about the person's day as they're going off somewhere. We don't know something about each other's day, so you have that sense of like, okay, we're a team, we're doing this thing, even though we may be doing things separately. And so you're just checking in with the day, touching each other, hugging, smooching, and here's the time where you can drop in that appreciation. Really good time for that. And then at the end of the day, when somebody comes home, and you may have a weird schedule, and this may happen at odd hours, and that's fine. You want to just have a couple minutes to catch up. And my wife and I try to do this immediately, unless we're bringing in groceries. Then usually we try to help each other. But when one of us gets home, we just kind of go in the front room and we sit down and we just reconnect for a little bit. And it's not always very formal. And today it was just standing in the kitchen for a little bit. But our whole focus was on each other. We weren't on our phones. We weren't petting the cats. We don't have any children to annoy us yet. But this is a time when it's okay to say, kids, I love you, and I will talk to you in 2 minutes. I need to connect with my partner here. So reunions, also an amazing time to share some appreciation. But I'd like you to kind of talk with each other and figure out when would maybe this is going to be easy because you already have the schedule set. But if it's not, I'd like you to just take a minute, and it doesn't have to be too complicated. And this may change, it may vary if your schedules are off. To try to get something tacked down and decide on what time are we going to check in before we leave and what time we're going to reconvene. And you may just want to make a rule that if anybody comes home, we have an automatic routine. I love Tony Robbins, and he says that whenever he gets home, he shouts, "Lucy, I'm home!" And wherever his wife is in the house, Sage will just sprint to him, and if she comes home, he'll sprint to her, and they have this big smooching romantic reunion every time. They want to bring that kind of energy into the relationship. You could just make a rule like that. Now, I don't necessarily run to the front door, but I do make sure to go greet my wife whenever she comes home and vice versa. So we need to, again, commence the pinky promise that we're going to work on this. We are going to do the partings and reunions ritual. We're going to check in with each other every day. And by pinky promising, you are committing that I will initiate this. This is my job to initiate. Both of your jobs to initiate here. And if your partner forgets, guess what? It's your job. Sound good? All right. Good. Pinky promise is stronger than steel. Excellent. Now, if you need to, throw a reminder in your phone for these reunions too, because starting any new habit can be difficult. So please keep Google handy or Siri. I know that these are simple things, but when you commit to them, they make a measurable change. My clients are constantly like, the craziest thing happens, Kent. I tried that thing you said, I totally felt better. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Sometimes it's hard to take good advice, but when we do, we get a change. When we do a new pattern of any kind, we're going to get different results. And I understand that sometimes when the relationship's not in the best place, these can seem like very minuscule things. But I promise you, building this foundation of your friendship will prepare you to be able to handle all of the conflict, all of the communication issues we're going to be addressing in future classes. So I'd like to take a minute and share a little bit with the class. You guys have received some little like aha moments, like your brain's been thinking about these principles and you've probably learned something. I'd like to take some time now for you guys to share them with each other so everybody can benefit from everyone else's little gold nuggets that they just received. You can unmute yourself or you can use the chat box.
I'll start. Oh, somebody else started in the chat, but somebody said smiling changes your brain chemistry in the chat. But I was just going to say, I think that we take for granted that we love things about each other in our relationship a lot of the time. So, I assume that he knows all the things that I love about him. And I like the idea that we need to take the time to remember to tell each other things that we like about each other, because maybe we forget.
Yeah, easy to get in that pattern.
So at the beginning, you, or I guess it wasn't the beginning because we were late, but said something that about how at the beginning of a relationship, you're hormonal and you have this, I mean, I'm not remembering the word for it, but anyway.
The infatuation phase?
Yeah, infatuation. You said that it's possible to get back to that level of interest, and I've assumed that that's gone forever. I'd love to get that back.
It can definitely happen. I was, I think, about 3 years into my marriage, and we had settled into the normal pattern of just trying to hang out, and it was my wife that started really shifting our pattern in those times. She started doing little things to show that she cared about me. And I just started feeling so giddy. And it took a couple weeks to get into this new groove, But man, in between every client, I didn't want to write my session notes. I just wanted to see if she texted me, and I wanted to call her and talk to her on the phone like 5 times a day. Like, how are you doing? It's wonderful to talk to you. I just love you so much. It can absolutely come back. It's like a muscle, you know. Your muscles atrophy when you don't use them. You start building them up again, though. They'll grow back pretty quick. We have a muscle memory. It's definitely a possibility. Anybody else?
I like how you said that a foundational principle of a good marriage is friendship. That's based on friendship. And I think, I don't know, I guess I believe anyone could have a good friendship. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe you got to have another secret ingredient too to that. But I do think that's something that we can work on. Or, I mean, I think we already do have a good friendship, but I just think that gives us hope.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because I think everyone can have a good friendship, and these have all been great tools, very simple things to, you know, like to turn and smile and to just, and it vocalize those appreciations that you have for your spouse and your refinement partner. I think it was all really good stuff. And so, yeah, I'm going to try to apply that more.
Awesome.
And thank you. Thanks for
You'll
everything.
find that a lot of these things, you already know how to do them. It's not like there's some kind of mystery. We just sometimes forget that we need to speak up more. We need to show our appreciation verbally. We're not just make the assumptions, but do the things to make each others feel special. And man, just my wife buys me a treat at the grocery store, and I feel like $1 million. Oh boy, a treat. She thought of me.
Yeah.
Thanks. Well, let's do one more. Share your golden nuggets of wisdom with each other.
I'll share something too.
Go ahead.
So I'm kind of a quiet guy, like for the most part, and just what you said about just looking at somebody and just saying hi makes a big difference. Like your reaction, you don't intend to like have a negative reaction, but sometimes I find that just because I'm quiet, that just smiling at somebody can change everything. Or just, you know, I think that was a golden nugget for me. It was just that initial reaction. Just look at somebody and smile can really change things.
Yeah, like the spirit of the relationship, right? Can by our behaviors and our feelings can change. Yeah.
Got a question for you. So if there's a week that we can't make it, did you say this was 4 weeks or 6 weeks?
6, and we are recording them.
So there's an email or something that we can watch a recording?
You're
Perfect.
Figure that out, I'm sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your gold nuggets. Looks like VC says, smiling changes brain chemistry, so now we plan to smile more. Katie says, I love the idea of changing small patterns to see positive changes. They really accumulate. Those little things, don't underestimate them. Tiny little shifts can make a difference. It's just like the example of smiling versus being kind of quiet. Sometimes a blank face is like a blank canvas, and we just put all of our worst fears onto the person. We walk in and they don't smile, and we think, oh, geez, what did I do? Or they're mad at me. Oh, crap. And this happens all the time with me because I'm the same way. I'm very introverted. And my wife will walk in and go, are you mad at me? I'm like, no, I didn't think that. It's easy to have those fears. So nice to be able to call them out and vocalize them. She's like, we're okay. We're good. We're right. Oh, yeah, we're in love. Okay, we can go back to what we were doing. All right, well, I'd like to open it up for questions then. And it could be about anything we've talked about tonight or anything in general. And if there's specific things you would like to see in coming programs, please throw those in. I'm trying to go off my general experience with clients and what they're facing, but if I can custom tailor this more to you guys here, that would be a dream come true. So anything you want to see in the future, any questions about, well, pretty much anything. Now is the time.
Also, while people are gathering their courage to ask their questions, I just put in the chat. Some of you probably weren't quite in yet, but I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, and it's also in the Eventbrite. But we have a Google form where if you have questions that you want to be addressed in future classes, and if you don't feel comfortable asking them here, or if you think of one later, it is in the Eventbrite event. And also I just dropped a link in the chat right now. You can go and just fill out that form and just put in the form what you would like to be addressed, or a question that you have for Kenneth, and he can address it in a future class as well.
Any questions at
Nobody's
all?
gonna ask questions.
If you have any questions that maybe you don't want to address as publicly, you can email me here. But if anybody's got them now, your questions will benefit everybody, I can guarantee you. 'Cause you have a lot of the same things on your minds.
Oh, where's the list of the 70 plus attributes?
Yes, let me pull that up. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you for asking that question,
Yes, thanks.
Evelyn.
Okay, here we go. There's that.
So there's a link in the chat
Cool.
for that.
So if there's no questions then, did you guys find this useful?
Yeah,
Is
I
this
think
helpful stuff to know?
a lot of people have definitely found it useful. A lot of people are thanking you. I think the idea that changing those little patterns, changing little simple things can make such a big difference. It doesn't seem hard to twice a week make sure that we, tell our partners what we love and appreciate about them. And it doesn't seem hard that when we come and go to just take a minute to acknowledge each other. That seems, it seems really simple, but also just to have that in your head to go, oh yeah, that's something little that we can change. I think it's super helpful to have baby steps to make things better.
I know as you guys were watching tonight, you probably thought of somebody and you thought, oh, they could use this. They could really use this. Am I right? Got some friends, got some family. Will you do me a favor? As soon as we're done here, will you send them a text and invite them to the next one? It's going to be on February 26th. And put that on your calendar too. And the next one, we're going to get a little bit deeper and talk about how to build a deeper emotional connection now that we have the foundation of the friendship. I would love to get all of American Fork here, all of Pleasant Grove, all of Orem, everybody who needs this. And there's a lot of people around here who do. And it's an opportunity to get free training. This is the kind of stuff I work on with my clients in therapy. And if I can help 22 couples at once, that's awesome. But I know there's more people that could use the help. So next time.
I've got a question.
Oh, yeah.
So at the beginning, and I don't really remember when this was, when you started, you got really excited about that reciprocal thing that you drew, what A does affects B, which then in turn affects A, and you got really excited and you said, if only I could just take what's in my head and just put it in your head, right? And I was assuming that, and that was in reference to where one, has the effect on the other is more than we realize, regardless of whether the reaction is, or whether they're actually reciprocating what we're sending. Is that Is that correct? And maybe a little more clarification on
Yes.
the
You're right.
effort that one person can do, regardless of whether the other partner, whether it's in a couple relationship or even a other outside friend relationship.
Mm-hmm. And it does eventually, sometimes immediately, has a change on them. If there's been a pattern of a lot of negativity and a lot of fighting, we get these stories in our head about the other person, and we start just seeing the story. They can be doing something completely different. They can have changed, but we're still married to that old story about them, and we don't really give them the space to change because brains are lazy and they would like to just hang on to a very simple list of facts that they know about a person and not have to look and see if they're doing something differently. But very often there can be pretty swift change, just like with that one client who all he does now is, instead of withdrawing, he just goes and says, "Hey, are you okay?" And he hugs his wife. And it's changed everything. Their dance, they're doing a whole new dance now. And this basically comes back to the mirror principle. Everything that you are getting back from a person is a mirror of what you're sending out usually. To put it that generally makes it a little confusing. But if you want to see what you're putting out, see how people are reacting to you. I've worked with people who say, like, everyone's so mean. I'm like, oh, have you seen what your face looks like when you're in this mood? You're scowling at everybody. They see that and they immediately go, geez, what's wrong with that person? And now the whole world is scowling at this person, and their reality goes, well, everyone's scowling at me. Everyone must be mean, when we don't recognize that we're often initiating it, or at least continuing it in that reciprocal causality. If you want another $5 term, we call this one punctuated equilibrium. We don't see the full cause and effect. We just see what the people do and how that impacts us. And we go, oh, I don't like that. We don't recognize how we may have unconsciously kicked off the process in the first place. I'm always telling, a lot of times women will come in to see me, their husbands don't want to come to therapy. I tell them, if you just knew the power you had over your husband, you can wrap him around your finger. I had a girlfriend once who said, you know that I've been using dog training techniques on you? She was in a behavioral class in college, and she was just using dog training tactics. And she told me she was, and guess what? They still work. Knew what she was doing, they still worked. Men are so easy to manipulate. And well, so much of what we want is to just make sure there's no fighting, and we're pretty happy. And even if we're not as expressive, that can be drawn out of us, not through like a direct demand, but by tapping into the power of your feminine energy and just being that like electromagnet, sucking us right in. Oh, if you only knew, ladies, if you only knew. The men, same thing for you. You have such power. Even if you're the only one here and your spouse doesn't want to come tonight, you can make massive changes just by you shifting the dance. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. That was a great explanation.
So next time, we are going to talk about the reason that your spouse, if your spouse has ever said, we never talk, and you're like, what are you talking about? We talk every day. I'm going to explain what's causing that. I'm going to explain why sometimes you can be talking and not feel very connected, and how to get to a deeper level on that. So we're going to go over that. Feeling like you're just on autopilot and maybe you're just taking care of kids or the house, we're going to try to talk about how to get the romance back a little bit. So again, I would love to hear specifics, things that you would like to hear in the next class. I think these would be so better if I didn't even make an outline and you guys just had questions. It's always so much more helpful to respond to the things people are thinking in the moment. But if any questions or things you'd like to have addressed, please fill out the form or send me an email. And I'm excited. This is the start of a new chapter in your relationships. You know, this is the start of when you hit a problem and you adjust and you keep going. And we're in the process right now of dumping all the old habits, and we are committed to growing something new. And you don't have all the answers yet, and that's okay. Right now, we're just working on being better friends, and this is going to make you feel closer. And it's okay to feel confident that you don't need all the answers right now. We just need to start at step one. See, this is going to increase your attraction to each other. And we're going to get the walls out of the way when we're ready. And things don't have to be perfect for you to be okay. We've got to struggle through the hard part so that we can get to the other side. And you got more education tonight, so you're picking up speed to the change on the other side of that. I'd like you to grab your partner's hand. You don't have to look at him. I'm not going to do any more of that tonight. Grab their hand. And I'd like you to say in your heart, so that these words travel down your arm, through your hand into theirs, and vice versa. And say in your heart, even though we may be disconnected right now, even though there might be pain we haven't taken care of yet, I still care about you. And I want to work through all of our problems. And I'll screw up, and I'll hurt you, and you'll hurt me. But each time, we're going to work on taking responsibility for it. Each time I fall, I'm going to rise again. And I'm going to keep trying until we figure this out. Give their hand a little squeeze. Two people working together can do anything. And even if it's only one, it can make some massive changes. Thank you for coming tonight.